I want to show you the best social media post that Levi Lusko has ever published. In my opinion, I did find one post of his with more likes than this one, to be fair. And we're also going to use this post to answer two questions that so many of you have. First, what goes on a pastor's social media account versus the church's social media account? How do you choose? And second, what are best practices for a pastor specifically on social, and what should they be aiming to avoid? Now, Levi Lusko is the pastor of Fresh Life Church in Montana, and the other day, a post of his came across my feed. And this is the first clue that the post I'm about to show was reaching a ton of people, because on my feed, I don't typically see Levi's content. That's not reflective of his efforts on social, but rather how I've tailored my Instagram feed. But this specific post was resonating with so many people that Instagram's discovery algorithm was like, hey, I know your personal Instagram feed is more tailored to fashion and cooking, but you've got to see this one. And as it relates to fashion and pastors, there is an intersect there, because just look at this navy sweater vest that Pastor Levi's rocking. I've had my eyes on a navy sweater vest for a little while, just haven't found one with the right fit. 1994 was 30 years ago, believe it or not, and sweater vests are back in a big way. So embrace the 90s, gents. Now, as I was saying, Instagram was so intent on me seeing this post because so many people like me were resonating with it. And this is the post right here. The caption reads, "Life lately, sorrow and gladness, hope and mourning, tears and laughter, grief and glory." The first photo is a candid shot of Levi and his wife Jenny at his father's funeral. Levi's dad Chip had pancreatic cancer, and Levi posted about this diagnosis about a year ago in April of 2023. And from there, he had kept the people that follow him online updated with his dad's journey along the way, culminating with this post right around Easter weekend this year, when Pastor Levi announced that his dad had gone home to be with Jesus. So that's the story behind the first photo in that first post I showed you. But there are 13 other photos and videos on the carousel. And this format of post we call a photo dump. You'll notice none of these posts are shot with a professional camera. They're all just candid shots from phones, some blurry, some low resolution. He's got his kids in there, family stuff like taking them to sports, dancing around a hot tub, meeting up with friends on a work trip. It's the complete human experience in one post, which is captured perfectly in Pastor Levi's caption. Life lately, sorrow and gladness, hope and mourning, tears and laughter, grief and glory. Now, I want to pause here for a moment and be extremely clear. I am not suggesting that Levi's post was awesome because it got a lot of likes. A lot of likes by posting about his father passing away after what was surely a terrible fight with an awful disease. My own mother passed away after a multi-year fight with cancer. She was 54. It was awful. There's a deeper lesson here to be learned. Pastor Levi has surely preached from stage and counseled hundreds of people over his many years of ministry about the darkest moments of life, about tragedy, about terrible things happening that feel like they shouldn't be happening. In this case, what do you do when you lose your role model? That was my mom for me. Levi says that was his dad in one of these posts. It's one thing to preach about it. It's one thing to counsel people through it. But when the pastor that talks about these kinds of things from stage goes through it himself, and then, instead of keeping it private, which was his right if he wanted to, because this stuff is agony, he brings people into it. Why? To shout as loud as he can from his public platform online, Christ is still on the throne. Jesus is still king. Death has no sting. At its simplest, this is a pastor taking what he says from the pulpit and showing you what it actually looks like in all the mess to live it out and walk with Jesus in real life. The man is dealing with the loss of his father. The kids still have tennis practice. Who can relate to this? I remember getting the call from my dad on a Saturday morning. His voice is cracking, telling me that mom had passed in the night. And guess what I was doing in that moment? I was putting on my shoes by the front door, about to take my daughter to the park. And why am I talking about my experiences with grief and loss? Aren't we supposed to be talking about Levi's post? And this is the point. When you invite people, as Pastor Levi did, into the pain and suffering you're going through, and you don't shy away from it, you don't hide from it, you invite people and give them permission to confront their own sorrow. You build faith in people to truly believe, yes, God is still good. The reason this post resonated with so many people is because we see ourselves in it. It's the human experience on full display. Life lately, sorrow and gladness, hope and mourning, tears and laughter, grief and glory. Now, to the broader question. What goes on a pastor's social media account if they care to have one? And how is it different from a church account? And the principle that I have for all of digital media is congruency. Your online activity should be congruent with what you're doing in person. For example, what's the justification for a pastor having their own social media account in the first place? My answer? The pastor preaching from stage is given the biggest chunk of time on a Sunday morning typically. So it's congruent for a pastor to have a similar level of visibility on social. That approach to social is not being formed by best practices online. It's not being informed by secular culture. It's actually informed by our approach to service order and programming in person in our own churches. If you think a pastor should not aspire for that level of visibility online, my first question is, if it's not okay online, is it okay in person? Why? Let's start there. Because everything I recommend online is informed by in-person, congruency. In-person informs online, not the other way around. Now that leads us to the question, okay, what should a pastor post on their social accounts? And this is where I'd like you to consider your own church and your pastor's preaching style and let that inform your social media content, congruency. So for example, if your pastor, like many, uses personal stories in their sermons, then that would lend itself well to Pastor Levi's approach to social, showing what life as a follower of Jesus looks like on the day-to-day. Now let's be clear. The post I've used as an example in this video is the most extreme example of that. Most of the time, a photo dump post like that might show you out for dinner with your spouse, then you doing some exercise, then something at work, taking the kids to tennis practice, reading the Bible. It's still the life lately idea. On the other hand, if your church's preaching style is devoid of personal stories, it's more strictly Bible teaching, then let that carry over and inform your approach to social. And then, as it relates to content, the church's account can be more programming focused, while the pastor's account can be more personal focused. One more addition I'd like to add here. Do you know the most popular post a church can publish in a given year? It's not related to Easter or Christmas. It's not a daylight savings post. It's a post wishing the lead pastor happy birthday. Guaranteed. I have seen this play out hundreds of times. Churches struggle to get traction online. They try and they try. Then they do a throwaway, help us wish our pastor a happy birthday today post, and it blows up. Why? The motivation for your followers to respond to the birthday post is the same underlying motivation that has them responding to a life lately post like Pastor Levi's. It's humanizing. It's relatable. It's real life. It's show, don't tell. What's a common critique we hear of churches and pastors? It's all gloss, veneers, suit and tie, buttoned up, perfect people. When you invite people into the mess, into the grime, into the real everyday life that we all have, people respond. And unlike a happy birthday post that you can only rely on once per year, the life lately style of photo dump post is a format you can return to again and again. It builds people up in the faith. It's congruent with what you're doing in person, and it's aligned with the best practices on social media. That is the ideal intersection of values and mission and tactics. If you're looking for a deeper dive into social, check out the Church Social Media Masterclass. It's a complete crash course on social for churches here on YouTube. It's free. It's linked on the screen. I'll see you there. And thanks as always for your time, attention, and trust. We'll talk to you next Tuesday.